Hello, I'm John Robertson, and this is a study of Revelation chapter 17. So we've seen some interesting things up to this point. We've seen that Christ has disclosed the contents of the seven-sealed book that God holds within his right hand. It was the Lamb of God that was the only worthy one to take that and to loose its seals, remember. We've seen how the seven trumpets have blown, and the consequence is many plagues and destruction and disaster has come upon those of the world. The object of those trumpets is revealed at Revelation chapter 9 and verse 20 and 21 to be that of repentance, to move people to repentance. It's God's loving way, God's chastising hand that causes people to turn from their sinful works. Then we noticed, last chapter, the pouring out of the seven bowls of God's wrath. And again, at Revelation 16, verses 8, 9, 10, 11, we found that the objective of those bowls of wrath is to cause people to repent of their sinful works. So what we spent time doing with our last study is drawing a connection between the loosing of the seven seals, the sounding of the seven trumpets, and the pouring out of the bowls of wrath. What has obviously occurred is that the beast out of the sea, the beast out of the earth, remember Revelation 13, do the work of the dragon. They are represented by the city known as Babylon, and this personification of the spirit of wickedness is depicted in the issues of this world, such as the pleasures that this world has, the glittery things of luxury and wealth, those things that would cause men to covet after them, the deceptive errors of faulty or erroneous teachings. All of these things are the seductive vices of the red dragon, and he has obviously been successful at pulling many people to his side and destroying even the saints. And so as we move into chapter 17 here, we will see that God has his elect people, those that will not give in to the ways of the red dragon, the beast out of the earth, the beast out of the sea. They will not give in to these three demonic frogs out of the mouth of the dragon and the beast. They are going to remain faithful till death. They will overcome because of the Lamb, and we'll see that here at Revelation chapter 17. So the question is, where do I fall in this? The masses of the world follow the ways of the devil, whereas there are a few. Remember Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14. There are a few that will find the road, the path to righteousness. So hopefully you're on that road. You desire to be on that road, the path of righteousness, as opposed to the broad path of destruction where most people are. So one of the nice things about the book of Revelation is that it is designed to open our eyes to see the things that most of the world does not see. So we're going to continue to talk about these unseen things that are seeable, if only we would apply ourselves. So we're looking at Revelation chapter 17 and verse 1 then, and we read, "And there came one of the seven angels that had the seven bowls, and spoke with me, saying, Come hither, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot that sits upon the many waters." What angel this was, we don't know, other than it being the one of the seven angels that had the bowls of wrath. Was it the first angel, second angel? It just says on the angels. This angel is going to show John the sentence of condemnation for this great harlot, or this great prostitute that sits upon the many waters. Now we will see later on in this chapter that these many waters are a representation of peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. In other words, she sits upon them by way of this authority over them. She is the one that they are enamored with, the one that they follow, the one that they seek after. As we've said before, she has everything to do with rock star status of this world. She represents these glittery things of wealth and luxury, the pleasures of this world, everything that's so attractive of this world. She is everything about that. And John's going to be shown the judgment of her. Now, at Revelation chapter 17 and verse 2, he reads, with whom the kings of the earth. Now, he's speaking again of this harlot that sits upon the many waters. And by the way, the Old Testament reveals three cities that are depicted as harlots. And I thought this was interesting: Nineveh, Tyre, and Babylon. And so obviously here under consideration is Babylon, this harlot city. So there is this, when we're using the language here, we have to remember the interconnected study of the entire book. So we've talked quite a bit about Babylon and what Babylon represents. This is the great city of the dragon. Just like Christ has his great city, Zion, Jerusalem. Even so, the dragon has his devilish city, Babylon. But Babylon is just a representation. Babylon's long gone, the literal Babylon. But she has raised her ugly head in every generation, as we've seen and we'll see in this study. So it is her, Babylon, this harlot that sits upon the many waters, that the kings of the earth commit fornication with. In other words, they join with her in these pleasures of wealth and luxury and sensuality. Everything, again, that's glittery in this world that people just have to have. The idea of, we've seen it said a couple of times in the story, I've just described it as the world looking up to the rock star on the stage and just desiring what he has. He has all this fame, he has all this fortune, he has everything that a world man or a world woman would possibly want. He has the greatest of mansions, the most beautiful cars, everything that's temporary, everything that's just of this world. Think about that. Such a one cannot take any of that stuff with them once they die. They'll just leave it to others. So this harlot, it says, is with the kings of the earth that commit fornication with her. And they that dwell on the earth were made drunken with the wine of her fornication. Okay, so you have these higher authorities that represent Babylon and this harlot because they are with her. They enjoy what she represents. And also they that dwell on the earth. So we've already seen a couple of times in our study this idea of those of the earth representing those that wear the mark of the beast. Revelation 13, verse 6, 7, and 8. And so those that wear the mark of the beast are intoxicated. They're drunken with the blood or the wine of the fornication of this harlot. In other words, they drink it full in. They desire it and they imbibe of it. They partake of it. What? Pleasures of this world, a lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and vainglory of life, as John says at 1 John chapter 2, verse 15, 16, and 17. And as John tells us, all of these things of the world, they just pass away. There's no eternal value to them. Okay, we keep moving here at Revelation 17 and verse 3. And it says, and he carried me away, this angel that's showing John the judgment of the harlot. He carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. And I saw a woman sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, so this woman, obviously this harlot woman that's under context here, sitting upon many waters and many nations. Here it says sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast. So there is this connection between this scarlet-colored beast and the nations and the kings and the dragon that gives all of them his authority. So we need to see that there is this connection between the scarlet color is crimson, the red of cherry, deep scarlet, red burgundy color. So she is sitting upon this red beast. We think about the red dragon, and his name is he has names full of blasphemy. That is irreverent speech towards God. God represents reality. God represents good. As opposed to evil, pleasures of luxury and all the things of this world. God is something totally different than that. And so the world and the world's beast, Satan, and all those that wear his mark, blaspheme God, because God doesn't see God sees eternally, whereas the world only sees what's right before their eyes, and they don't like that about God. And he says that this beast, or that this woman sitting upon the scarlet beast of blasphemy, has 7 heads and 10 horns. So we may remember that Revelation 12 and verse 3, that it was said of the dragon, that the dragon had 7 heads and 10 horns. So again, you have this connection between the dragon, this beast, and all these people that are against God and his saints. They make the same arguments against God, those that wear the mark of the beast, as does this blasphemous beast and its harlot. So when they're plagued with calamity, they're angry and they blaspheme the name of God, rather than seeing that the God of love is trying to help them. But let's keep talking about this. At Revelation 17 and verse 4, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. All right, this harlot woman that sits upon this beast of scarlet colored, she is clothed in royal apparel, and all these items of luxury, of gold, of treasures, of precious stones, pearls. So she is attractive to the world, because this is what the world is attracted to. I mean, it doesn't take long for someone to get old enough to look out into the world in which we live in and see that this is what the world is enamored with: riches. Look at the guy on television that's got the giant gold chain that looks like it nearly way down his neck. This is what excites everybody. He's trying to impress people with this gold chain, the size, each link the size of your fist, just about. This is something that impresses the world. This means success. This means money. This means that I have everything that you want. And this is the way this woman is. This is what she represents. Again, she's like the rock star up on the stage that everybody looks at and is enamored with. Man, this guy's got it all. He's got money. He's got wealth. He's got luxury. He has this mansion. He has all this fame and fortune. Everybody likes him. He's like he is what everybody aspires to be. So it's not as though those of the world are aspiring to be like Christ. They're aspiring to be like this harlot that's arrayed in these luxurious ways. She has in her hand, he says, a golden cup full of abominations. It's gold. It's costly. It looks fantastic, but in reality, it is full. Its content is vile, it's disgusting, and it's wicked. That's the idea of something that's an abomination. So again, here's reality. Here's what the world sees: a cup of gold, wonderful. I see luxury of this woman with all of the precious jewels. But what God sees is an abomination, because it violates the object of his creation. Again, God is eternal, and so are all of his created beings. And so those that are enamored with this harlot here are not seeing things of eternity. The only thing that they are doing is they are delusional. They're only seeing what's right before their eyes right now. They can only see this life. They're not thinking about the life afterwards. And he says, even the unclean things of her fornication. So the abominations, that cup of gold filled with abominations, is defined as the unclean things of her fornication, which we've very clearly defined. All right, Revelation chapter 17 and verse 5. And upon her forehead a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and the abominations of the earth. Okay, so John is given clear identity to her now. The mystery, or a secret. The mystery of the prostitute beast is lies, deception, vainglory, lust, and flesh. Very fascinating, because we have the mystery of Christ, which is the gospel. It's the light of truth. So what she represents is the absolute opposite of what Christ represents. She's identified as Babylon the Great. We've already seen pictures of this example at Revelation chapter 11, verse 8 and 9. And so while, again, God has his city, Zion, the city of Jerusalem, so Satan has his world city, Babylon. Whereas Zion represents the church, the saved, the realm of holiness, heaven. Zion represents everything but that. I'm sorry, Babylon. Did I say Zion? Babylon represents everything but what Zion represents, what Jerusalem represents. So again, he's getting a clear identity. He says, thirdly, she's the mother of harlots. So her offspring are prostitutes that go about destroying the souls of everyone else. So the kings have fornication with her. The result is that she has children, and these children are prostitutes just like her. They are a representation of everything that this world is fascinated with, is enamored with, is impressed with. Everything that the world wants is seen in her. She's the mother of harlots. And he says the abominations of the earth. Again, these abominations are the shameful things, the wicked ways of the world. So what do you see here? Let's just pause here and make sure that we're all on the same page. Make sure we see what's going on here. We live in a world, we have the red dragon, the beast out of the sea, the beast out of the earth. We have this harlot that sits upon the beast. What we need to see is what the book of Revelation is accomplishing. I can't say is attempting to accomplish it, because it does accomplish it, but it has to accomplish it in your mind, in my mind, and that which it is accomplishing is an unveiling of the wickedness, the spirit of wickedness that's in this world, governed by the red dragon or Satan. So John is seeing the unmasking of this harlot. She has this appearance of beauty, decked out in all this jewelry and gold. She's this beautiful prostitute that everybody wants to have pleasure with. But in all reality, she is very ugly. And this is the picture of sin. Ugly from the perspective of destructive, eternally destructive. So I want to open my eyes to that. Things of pleasure of this world, yeah, there's no doubt pleasure has a draw to all of us. We would be lying to say otherwise. But I want to make sure that when I'm tempted, or there's an attempt to seduce my mind to accept things that are contrary to the will of God, that I open my eyes to the reality of these things. The pleasures of this world, the riches of this world, the fame and fortune of this world are not worth my eternal soul. Okay, so we move on to Revelation chapter 17 and verse 6. Very fascinating, isn't it? The book is designed to open our eyes to see what most of the world will never see. Most of the world are not going to sit here and listen to a recording like this. Most of the world is not going to open the book of Revelation and do a study of it. And that's the sad part about it. But let's keep going. We are here and we're studying this, and we want to know the truth of these things. Chapter 17 and verse 6. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great wonder. Okay, the idea of wonder here is to be amazed. I'm astonished. So John sees that she is drunk with the blood of saints. In other words, she has deceived saints. She has caused saints to lose their souls, to be destroyed, because they were deluded by the things of this world, the pleasures, the fine things of this world. And you know, I wish, sometimes I think to myself, I wish I had more of a talented way of saying things to make it very clear. I hope that I'm coming across clear, but we have to see this world for what it truly is. Is there anything wrong with a nice car? No, it's not what we're saying. But what if it is the case that all you think about is that car, or some woman or man, or all you think about is attaining something, and it is your life's objective, and you completely forget about the things of God, or God kind of takes a back seat. You kind of give him a third place in your life behind, hey, I want to have fun, you know, and hey, I want to have some things in this life. And so God takes kind of a back seat. This is what this is all talking about. And so some of the saints, even saints, the people of God, were seduced to live in such ways. I have to battle this. Everybody has to battle it. I have to open my eyes and say, look, hey, I'm not going in the right direction here. And my eternal soul's at stake. I want to open my eyes and see what's really going on here. The devil is so tricky, so deceptive, so seductive. And before we know it, we're caught up in things. And we have to open our eyes and see what's really going on. She's also drunk with the blood of martyrs. So there have been people that have died, saints that have died living for Christ. We saw that back at Revelation chapter 6, verse 9 and 10, and also chapter 11, verse 7. She's responsible for the death of these people. There are those of this earth that are so angered by the saints, the righteous, that rule them with a rod of iron, that rather than listening to them anymore, they'd kill them. And so he says that John wanders after her. And so the question is, why did John wander after this harlot? Why did he look at her in amazement or astonishment? What was going on here? Was he amazed or astonished because all the kings of the earth were following her? Did that just amaze him? She had this appearance of royalty and great wealth. Was that what amazed John? She killed many saints, and she seduced many of the saints. Is that what amazed him? Why is John so greatly astonished by her? Was it her beauty? Did he admire her wealth? Did he marvel at her fame? Or was it just the fact that he's astonished at the fact that many saints have given in to her? Well, in order to answer that question, we just have to keep reading, as we've said so many times. And the next verse explains what's going on here. So why was John astonished, amazed? Well, verse 7, and the angel said to me, why did you wonder? Why were you amazed or astonished at this woman when I showed it to you? He says, I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. So here's the issue. John was completely astonished because he hadn't completely grasped all that she was about at that point. So in order for us to see clearly what is under consideration here in the world that we live in order for this to happen, I must unmask this harlot. She has the mask of beauty. She has the mask of luxury and pleasure. She has the mask of fun. She looks so wonderful. Everything about her is pleasing to the eyes and to the touch right now. But once you remove all of those things from her, guess what? She is hideous. So it is the objective of this angel to unmask this hideous woman, the harlot that sits upon the beast, so that John would not be enamored with her, and that you and I would not be seduced by her. We need to see her for what she really is. So she's, it says, the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. Okay, we're going to identify her. We're going to see her for what she really is. Let's see. I have in my notes Daniel 7. The beast would be Rome, according to Daniel chapter 7. You follow this, and you see that we're in the time of this is written that it is Rome under consideration. This beast. John identifies her in the book of Revelation. We see this correlation between Babylon and Rome. If you get fixated on Rome, and I think that some of my brethren have done that. If we get fixated on Rome, this is talking about Rome and the persecution of Rome against the saints and everything. If that's all we fixate on, then we're losing the bigger picture here, and we're going to be deluded. We're not going to unmask the harlot like we need to unmask her and see her for what she is. She has raised her ugly head in every generation. Rome is no longer around today. the Roman Empire. Babylon's not around. Egypt is no longer around. Sodom and Gomorrah is no longer around. Nineveh is no longer around. Tyre is no longer around. Babylon is gone. So they have all had their heads smitten, and they continue to raise their ugly heads in the next generation. So we live not in the times of Rome, but we live in the times that we live in, where this ugly beast continues to raise her ugly head and to deceive God's people with all of these pleasures and things of this world. I did an interesting exercise. I did a quick Google search on the top 10 world sin cities for our modern day here. The time of this recording is August of 2021. So the top 10 sin cities, and the article goes on to say that the criteria for a location to make our sin cities list is pretty simple. It has to offer a strong presence of gambling, sex, drinking, drugs, and partying. And so I'll give you the top 5 instead of whole 10 there. But at number 5 is Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Number 4, Las Vegas, Nevada. Number 3, Amsterdam of the Netherlands. Number 2, Tijuana, Mexico. And the number 1 sin city of our world today is Pattaya, Thailand. So the point is, think about that. Every small city, I live in a pretty small city, but every small city the globe over seeks to measure up to these big world sin cities. Why? Because they are representations of these kings that fornicate with the prostitute. They are representations of Babylon. They are the ones that represent everything that sin is. Okay, so we continue on in our study of Revelation chapter 17 at verse 8. And again, this angel is unmasking this beast before John's eyes so that John can see clearly, and John is commanded to write these things so that we can see clearly. Okay, verse 8, he says, "The beast that you saw was and is not and is about to come up out of the abyss and to go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder. They will be amazed at her. They whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. When they behold the beast, how that he was and is not and shall come." So it might be that someone asks the question, how is it something can exist in the past but not at the present, but again in the future? The wording is reminiscent of what was written at Revelation chapter 13 and verse 3. John said, "And I saw one of his heads as though it had been smitten to death, and a death stroke was healed, and the whole earth wondered after the beast." And here we see that they that dwell on the earth shall wonder after this beast. What's going on here is obvious. So in every generation, the beast raises its ugly head, and it is conquered by Christ and his saints, as we'll see as we continue to go through here. But he raises his ugly head in the next generation. So he doesn't go away, and this is what's so amazing. So one of the attractive things is that this world of pleasure, of sensuality, luxury, and wealth, and delusional teachings, they are accepted and desired in every generation. It's not something that just dies out and goes away. Every generation is enamored by it. And this is what the world wonders. They're amazed, they're astonished at this power of this beast, and how wonderful it is to have the things of this life. And those whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, they are the ones that are amazed by this. They are the ones that participate. They commit fornication with her, so to say. So the statement brings up a discussion of predestination, foreordination, Romans chapter 8, verse 29 through 30, Ephesians chapter 1, verse 3 through 7, and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 13 and 14. These types of passages are found throughout the scriptures, but what it says is that God has always known that there will be a class of people, there will always be a people that do his will, that see the ugly harlot and beast and the dragon for what they really are, and they're hideous. They're destructive. They're eternally destructive to people's souls. There are always going to be people who see that. These are referred to as God's elect. But those that wear the mark of the beast, which are the masses, they're always going to be deluded. They're not going to see their hand before their face in relationship to spiritual things and the destruction of their soul, because they want so badly to be like that rock star on the stage. It has everything. They just cannot see that this life comes to an end, and that's all there is. And then they go on for all eternity in the Spirit. At any rate, let's move on. Revelation chapter 17 and verse 9. He says, here is the mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. Okay, so we're going to expose this beast. We're going to expose this woman, and the mind of wisdom will see it. The mind that is of sound judgment, of knowledge and intellect, will see this woman for what she truly is. The verse reads a lot like what we saw at Revelation 13, verse 8, where John writes, here is wisdom. He that has understanding, let him count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. And the number is 666, 666. Remember, we looked at that. So here's wisdom, that you understand this. Again, here's the mind of wisdom that sees, that unmasks this ugly harlot for what she really is. She is a destroyer, is what she is. And so he says the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. So earlier he said she sits upon the many waters, which are the nations and the people. So these mountains must be representation of these peoples, these nations, and these tongues. Let's keep going. We'll find more about this. Revelation 17 and verse 10. And they, that is the beast, 7 heads or 7 mountains that the prostitute sits upon, they are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, the one is, the one is not yet to come. Now this is what is so enamoring or so attractive or astonishing about this beast. Remember, was, is not, is to come. This is astonishing. How is this? Well, 5 are fallen, one is, the other is not yet to come. We think about all of these kings and nations that we have dealt with in the book of Revelation. We've talked about countries, nations such as Egypt, cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, Nineveh, Babylon, Rome. All of these have fallen, and it says there is one that is currently, as we said, currently, even though we're not in the Roman Empire days, we are in the days that we live in, and the seductive beast continues the dastardly work of the red dragon today, and there's one to come. So don't think that just because something is ended today, there will always be another wicked one that replaces the previous one. We're not talking about some kind of man. We're talking about a spirit, if you will. The spirit that reigns in the hearts of those who wear the mark of the beast. And that spirit is the spirit of Satan. These demonic spirits that go out and teach error, that seduce the world to say, hey, I want to practice these pleasurable things, even though they're against the Word of God. Hey, I want to do everything within my power to achieve this luxury, even though it's going to hurt my immediate family, even though it's going to hurt my opportunities of heaven. This is what's under consideration here. And he says he must continue a little while. When he comes, he will continue a little while. That is the one that's not yet to come. There's always going to be these people, this spirit that reigns. They will fall in battle to the saints, to Christ. There will be another one that raises his ugly head. So again, we saw at Revelation 17, verse 8, that the beast is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss. So same thing under consideration here. Revelation 14, verse 8, and another, a second angel followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, that has made all nations to drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Same thing under consideration here. So they fall in battle. That is, they are defeated. They're conquered. They're ruined. And it's all because of the blood of Christ, as we've seen and we will see. All right, we keep moving. Revelation 17 and verse 11. And the beast that was and is not and is himself also an eighth and is of the seven, he goes into perdition. That is, he is destroyed. He goes away. He had his time and he's gone. So this is fascinating, though. We have this statement that illustrates how the Bible uses numbers in a symbolic type of a way. The beast here is represented by 7 kings. And what we have noticed about the number 7 is that it represents sufficiency, completion, or perfection. Then he brings up an eighth also, he says. So we've seen that the beast of Rome and Babylon are one and the same. They're continuously compared with each other, and they are the same from the perspective of representing wickedness. So each world power of sin and debauchery falls at the hands of Christ and his saints. And so we have this sufficiency in the kings. It's not a literal number. The fact that there will be an eighth represents another that will be just like this 7 kings that were before, that are complete and sufficient in relationship to their powers of their seductive powers of worldliness. We'll just put it like that. But everything that they do leads to nothing but destruction in every generation. And this is what John's doing again, or the angel's doing with John. He's just trying to give a very clear description and unmasking the ugliness of the dragon, his beast, and this harlot. So Revelation 17, verse 12, and the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as of yet, but they receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. So again, the kingdoms under consideration that we have seen, cities such as Sodom, kingdoms such as Egypt, cities such as Babylon, kingdoms such as the Grecian, Medo-Persian, Roman Empire, kingdoms such as Babylon, these have all gone into perdition. They had their time and they're gone. But there is one king to come, another king and kingdom to come that is yet to come, and it's represented in the 7th head of this beast, Revelation 17, verse 10, as we saw. And so it's apparent that these 10 horns of the beast is a representation of that one king that has yet to come, that will continue a little while, or here 1 hour. So, in other words, my generation will die off. But that doesn't mean that this spirit of ungodliness ruled by Satan, this strong, powerful pull of pleasure and wickedness and the seduction of wealth and luxury and so forth, that doesn't mean it's just going to die off because I die or because somebody else is gone. It will raise its ugly head in the next generation. It will have its 1 hour, and then it will be done. So it is somewhat fascinating as you look here. Go back up to there. It says they received their kingdoms yet, but they receive authority as kings of the beast 1 hour. These 10 horns, 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings. So what significance would we see in 10? Why would these beasts be represented in these 10 horns? Why not 7 or 12 horns? Well, we examined the significance of the number 10 at Revelation 2 and verse 10 when he says there, fear not the things which you're about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to cast some of you into prison. You may be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. So we talked about it then, but let's just reiterate some things about this. Consider some uses of the number 10 throughout the scriptures. There were 10 plagues over Egypt, wasn't there? 10 commandments. There were 10 pillars, 10 curtains, 10 lavers of brass, 10 candlesticks, and 10 tables in God's holy tabernacle. There were 10 tribes of Israel as opposed to the 2 tribes of Judah. Hezekiah requested that the sundial go back 10 steps to convince him that God was with him. So our challenge is finding a consistency in the use of these numbers so that we can make sense of these 10 days or in prison, as we noted from Revelation 2:10, or the 10 horns of the beast here. So the commonality among these events is a part of the whole, whereas the number 7 represents the whole. The 7th head would represent the completed effort of the beast throughout history until Christ comes again. And within this 7th head were 10 horns, which are also kingdoms that have not yet come. So each of these 10 kingdoms are part of the whole, the 7th head. The second thing we need to see is that of these issues of horns is that throughout the scriptures they're used metaphorically to represent a place of strength, power, authority, protection. So just as there is the strength and power and protection and authority in animals' horns, even so we see this in these kingdoms. They have their 1 hour of all this seductive power and strength, and it will eventually end, as we'll see. Let's just keep reading here, the best thing to do. So we move to Revelation chapter 17 and verse 13. He says, these have one mind, and they give their power and authority unto the beast. These would be the 10 kings to come that are the beast. And he says they have one mind. These 10 future kings and beast have the same thought, judgments, and purpose. What is it? We all desire the seductive pleasures of this world. We all share in the goal of achieving all the luxurious things and to be famous, to be looked up by people. And he says that all of these give, that is, they deliver up their power, their abilities, their might, their strength, and their authority unto the beast. So what is he saying? They are all in, so to say, when it comes to the objective of greed, power, sensuality, and all these things that we've been talking about. They are all in. We give our all to you. We desire you. But the saints will see them for what they really are. Those things have no shelf life, so to say. The pleasures of this earth, fulfilling the lustful desires of the flesh, has no shelf life. It happens on a day, and the next day it's done. Or the next moment it's gone, it's done. So verse 14, these, that is the kings, the nations, the peoples of every tongue that worship the beast and the prostitute, that wear the mark of the beast, these shall war, fight, battle, quarrel, dispute against the Lamb, that's Christ, and the Lamb will overcome them. He will conquer them. He will vanquish them. He will subdue them. He will prevail over them. Every time, in every generation, every time he raises his ugly head in the next generation, the Lamb conquers him. You see, it's a losing life. To live a life that seeks after the pleasures of this world, the luxury of this world, the fame and fortune of this world, it's a lost cause. It's an eternal lost cause. Christ always wins. Why? Well, he says for there, seeing that. You know why Christ always wins? Because he's Lord of Lords. He has supreme authority and power and dominance over all. And he is King of kings. And they also shall overcome with him that are called and faithful, chosen and faithful. So just as God has known before the foundation of the world that there would be those that wear the mark of the beast that fail in this life, that are destroyed, he also knows that there will be those called and chosen and faithful to him, confident in God and his promises, that will overcome. They're not going to let these passing pleasures of sin dictate their lives because they see the bigger picture. And they see just how hideous this world spirit of pleasures is. They see it for what it really is. Yes, it has, there is some attractiveness to it that appeals to our human minds. But I see that it cannot save. All it does is destroys. So it's not pretty to me at all. It's not something that's fun at all. You know, to go out and get drunk, blast your brains out with alcohol, there's no fun in that whatsoever. Why? Because I see through eyes of wisdom and sound judgment, knowledge and intellect, that's nothing but destructive. Not many people think like that, right? I'm not going to go with that woman over there and do those ungodly things. Why? Because it's destructive. You say, well, she's beautiful. Yes. But what if you do that? It's destructive. You've ruined everything. I'm not going to cast away my family, spend every waking moment that I have trying to attain this luxury and wealth of this life. Why? Because I see how destructive it is. Again, not many people are thinking like that. I like what Philippians chapter 2 and verse 10 and 11 said in relationship to the supreme authority and rulership of Christ. He doesn't lose, neither do his saints. It says at Philippians 2 and verse 10 that the name of Jesus, every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things on earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. That's why he wins. In every generation, he wins. He doesn't lose, and neither does his true saints. All right, at Revelation, and I need to read Revelation 12 and verse 11. They overcome, the saints with Christ overcome. At Revelation 12 and verse 11, it says, they overcome him, the beast, and so forth, because of the blood of the Lamb, and because of the word of their testimony. And they love not their lives even to death. So that's a peculiar people. That's a very rare person right there. But this person gets caught up in the things of this world, the pleasures and the luxury and the wealth and everything else in this world. But they open their eyes as instead of being lifelong deluded, they open their eyes and they pray God for forgiveness for participating in those pleasures and those sinful things. They overcome. It's wonderful, isn't it? And I want to be a part of that. I am a part of that. And I pray, God, that you would seek to be a part of that as well, as opposed to those that are deluded by the devil. All right, so verse 15, he says, looking at Revelation 17, verse 15, and he said unto me, the waters which you saw, which the harlot sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. Okay, so remember, she sits upon this beast, a scarlet-colored beast, and it's a representation of her authority over them. They are enamored with her. All these people, all of these nations, all of these multitudes, these people that speak different language and so forth, they are completely enamored by her. They follow her. They're deluded by her. They don't see her for the ugliness that she represents, but they see beauty. They're attracted to everything that she represents. Earlier, John saw at Revelation 13, verse 8, that all that dwell on the earth shall worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb that has been slain. So they are enamored with her, as opposed to the people of God. And they are the ones that she sits upon. Verse 16, and the 10 horns which you saw, and the beast, these shall hate the harlot, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and shall burn her utterly with fire. Okay, it might be at this point that you say, well, wait a minute. I thought that they loved her, that they were enamored with her, that they liked everything about her. Well, this is very fascinating because this is the way it works. God turns the wicked against each other. And we'll see that at Revelation chapter 18, in verse 8, when we study that. The prophet Zechariah had something to say similar to that at Zechariah chapter 11, verse 8 and 9. Let me just read this. He says at verse 8, and I cut off the 3 shepherds in 1 month, for my soul was weary of them, and their soul also loathed me. Then said I will not feed you that which dies, let it die, and that which is to be cut off, let it be cut off, and let them that are left eat every one the flesh of one another. Okay, so what's happening is God turns the wicked against each other, and that's what he's talking about here at Revelation 17. The wicked don't want to be judged by the righteous. They don't like being ruled by the rod of iron. They don't like being told that they're wrong. They like to do what they want to do in this life and not feel guilty about it. But guess what? Yeah, and they kill the saints because of that. They persecute the saints because of that. But guess what? They don't want to be told by anybody, one of their own kind. They don't want to be told by one of their own wicked cohorts that what they are doing is something that another person wouldn't do. We hear the classic phrase, "They don't judge me," and people throw that out to everybody, not just moral people. So the world, most of the world doesn't want to be told by anybody that what they're doing is wrong, or that what somebody else would do something differently than the judgments that they have made. And so they turn on each other, and they eat each other up from that perspective. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, as people say. And that's all because of the way God has done these things. Now, Revelation chapter 17 and verse 17, for God did put it in their hearts to do his mind, and to come to one mind, and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God should be accomplished. Well, how does God put it in the king's hearts to destroy the harlot? They've turned on her. They've destroyed her. They've ate her up. Well, remember at Daniel, we've made reference to this several times. Daniel chapter 2 and verse 21, God raises up kingdoms and he brings them down, doesn't he? He raises up kings, they do his work, but they're ungodly. So he raises up another kingdom, and that kingdom is destroyed. So we think about the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, that Daniel interpreted. So you had the Medes and the Persians rise up. You had the Grecian Empire rise. You had the Roman Empire rise. You had Babylon. So each one of these kingdoms are destroying the previous kingdom. They all represent worldliness, and they all are enamored by the same things of pleasure, but they cannot stand the power of others. And so they destroy each other, and that's what's under consideration here. They're always going to destroy each other in this dog-eat-dog world. In Jeremiah chapter 51 and verse 11, the prophet of God said, make sharp the arrows, hold firm the shields. Jehovah has stirred up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, because his purpose against Babylon, to destroy it. For it is the vengeance of Jehovah, the vengeance of his temple. So everything's just going just like God has said it would go, and everything is obeying his commands in this unseen world. Okay, we get down here now to Revelation chapter 17 and verse 18, and this is our last verse of our study today. We read at verse 18, and the woman whom you saw, okay, the woman that John sees is the great harlot sitting upon the nations, people, the waters, Revelation chapter 17, verse 1 and verse 15. This woman you saw is the great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. So again, this great city, Babylon, remember Revelation chapter 16, verse 19, Satan has his city just as God has his city. So she sits upon these many nations. She represents the city of the devil. She reigns over the kings of the earth. They are enamored with her. She represents everything that the red dragon is about. So this woman you saw is the great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth. Chapter ends. So really what we have to see, we have to unmask this harlot, this woman, so that we have a proper view towards her. She is a personification, if you will. She is the spirit, if you will, of the sons that now reign, spirit that now reigns in the sons of disobedience. The Apostle Paul talks about Ephesians 2 and verse 2. So she is this spirit of ungodliness. She is everything that the devil is and represents. She is all about pleasure. She is all about immoral living. She is all about lust. She's all about the glittery things of this world. She's all about the ways of the deception of false teaching. She is this spirit of the dragon. Just like there is the Holy Spirit of truth, there is this great spirit of deception and lies and destruction. It's so very fascinating. So the objective is for me to open my eyes and to see this for what it truly is. What am I hearing this person saying out there? It's not the truth, it's a lie. What am I seeing here? This beautiful thing here that's like this wowing thing. It's destructive. I should see that. What about all of this luxury and wealth? Boy, if I could only have all of these things. It's destructive. We're not saying that anything's, say somebody's really pretty out there, somebody's beautiful. That doesn't make that person the Antichrist or, some kind of evil person just because they're beautiful. That's not what we're saying at all. We're not saying out there that it's wrong to have a nice house. What we're saying is, what we're seeing in this book is that the devil uses these things. These are his tools to delude people into a mindset of saying that this is all there is and this is all I must have. I see the rock star on the stage and I see how famous he is. I see how everybody loves him. I want to be like that. I want that fame. I want that fortune. And then the next thing you know, such a person has lost sight on eternity and God and his promises and reality. And I don't want to be like that. And the book of Revelation is helping me to open my eyes and to see these things. I hope that it's doing yours as well. Thank you for studying with me. We'll move on to Revelation chapter 18 now.